The savannah at dawn is a place of silent, raw beauty. But on this morning, the silence is broken by a sound of pure agony. In a dusty clearing, half hidden by thorny brush, a lion lies trapped, his powerful body brought low by a vicious coil of wire that bites deep into his front paw. Flies swarm around the festering wound, their incessant buzzing a cruel counterpoint to the lion's weak, pain-filled growls. He is too exhausted to fight anymore, his head resting in the dirt, his eyes clouded with suffering. Then, a shadow falls across him. A lone man, Mateo, approaches with steps as quiet as a prayer, his own heart hammering against his ribs. The camera would linger on the lion's face, on his pained, defiant stare that meets Mateo's. The tension is a physical force. Every instinct screams at Mateo to run, but his heart tells him to stay. This is a creature moments from death, and one wrong move could either save him or end both their lives. This is Koa, a lion known and respected by the local rangers. For months, poachers have been plaguing this reserve, setting these brutal, illegal wire snares to catch lions for the barbaric, illegal wildlife trade. Koa had been missing from his pride for several days, and now his fate is horrifyingly clear. The wire has sawed through skin and muscle, cutting off circulation and creating a deep, infected wound that reeks of decay. If he isn't freed, the infection will soon poison his blood, leading to a slow, agonizing death. Or worse, the poachers themselves could return at any moment to claim their prize. The rangers are miles away, dealing with another crisis. Koa's time is measured in minutes, not hours. He is utterly alone, facing an end born of human greed, his mighty spirit broken by a few dollars of twisted metal. Mateo knows he cannot wait. There is no time to call for help, no time for a tranquilizer that could further shock Koa's weakened system. The plan forms in his mind out of sheer desperation. He must free the lion right here, right now, with nothing but the wire cutters in his pocket. It is a plan so simple, it is madness. Distract the lion, approach with a calm he does not feel, and cut through the unforgiving wire before Koa reacts. There is no margin for error. One mistake, one sudden movement, and those powerful jaws will close around him. He takes a deep, steadying breath, his hand closing around the cold metal of the cutters. This is a gamble with the highest possible stakes, a solitary stand against unimaginable cruelty. The first step is like walking into a storm. As Mateo moves closer, Koa thrashes with a sudden burst of adrenaline-fueled panic, sending a cloud of dust into the air. The lion's teeth snap shut with a sound that cracks through the morning silence, missing Mateo's leg by mere inches. Each time Mateo kneels near the injured paw, Koa lunges, his actions driven by pure, rusted wire is stubborn, refusing to yield. The sound of distant gunfire from somewhere deep in the forest echoes, a chilling reminder that the poachers are still out there, and that time is their greatest enemy. Every second stretches into an eternity of heart-pounding terror. Then, something shifts. Perhaps it is the tone of Mateo's voice, a soft, steady stream of reassurances. Easy, big guy. I'm here to help. Just hold on. Perhaps Koa is simply too exhausted to fight anymore. But the lion stops struggling. His frantic panting slows. His fierce golden gaze fixes on Mateo, and for a breathtaking moment, it is not a look of rage but one of desperate, searching understanding. The growling ceases. The muscles in his powerful body relax, just a fraction. It is the window Mateo needs. He speaks softly, calming the lion as he inches those final, crucial inches closer to the snare. For the first time, Koa allows him to touch the wire without a violent reaction. A fragile, impossible trust is born in the dust. But hope is a fragile thing. Just as the wire begins to fray under the pressure of the cutters, Koa jerks his paw in a fresh wave of pain. The tool is ripped from Mateo's grasp, skittering across the dirt. The sudden movement tears the wound open wider, and blood, dark and alarming, pours onto the dry earth. Despair crashes over Mateo. If he backs away now, Koa will bleed out, or tighten the trap even further in his panic. If he goes closer, he is putting his face within reach of those jaws. It is a life or death decision made in a split second. He chooses to go back in. This is the moment of truth. With bare hands now, Mateo grips the bloody, stubborn wire. He pours every ounce of his strength into it, his muscles straining, his breath coming in ragged gasps. With a final metallic screech, the trap snaps open. For a terrifying, heart-stopping second, the lion is completely free and standing just a few feet away. Mateo freezes, waiting for the attack, the pain, the end. But it doesn't come. Instead, Koa takes one slow, limping step toward him. He doesn't roar. He lets out a deep, rumbling sound, a vibration that feels more like a purr than a threat. He looks directly into Mateo's eyes, and in that look is something that stuns the man to his very core. Acknowledgement. Gratitude. Then, without a backward glance, Koa turns and limps away, disappearing into the safety of the trees. Mateo collapses to his knees, tears of relief and awe streaming down his face, the image of that final look burned into his memory forever. Days later, rangers spot Koa. He is walking with his pride, the wound on his paw already beginning to heal, his strength slowly returning. He is back where he belongs. The footage from Mateo's body camera, showing that final, incredible moment. Mateo is hailed as a hero, but he brushes it aside. The real victory, he insists, is that Koa survived, that he is free. The brutal snare is destroyed, a symbolic end to this chapter of suffering, a small victory in a much larger war. The story closes with a powerful, universal truth. It reminds us that even in the face of horrific cruelty, a moment of compassion can create a bond that transcends species. Trust, offered in a moment of ultimate vulnerability, can change the course of a life. In saving Koa, Mateo may have saved an entire pride, and in sharing his story, he ignited a global call to action against the poaching that threatens these magnificent creatures. The final image is not of a rescue, but of a return. Koa, strong and free, standing on a rocky outcrop as the sun sets behind him, his golden eyes reflecting the fading light. He is a living symbol of hope, a testament to the fact that one person's courage can indeed change the world. Before the first step, there was a lifetime of hesitation. Mateo stood at the edge of the clearing, the image of the suffering lion seared into his mind. Every rational thought screamed at him to turn back. He was not a trained ranger. He was a conservation researcher, a man of data and observation, not of daring, hands-on rescues. The voice of his own fear was a deafening roar in his head. "This is not your job," it whispered. "You will die here, and no one will ever find you." He thought of his family, his friends, all the people who relied on him. Walking away would be the smart, the safe, the sane thing to do. But then he looked at Koa. He saw the slow, painful rise and fall of the lion's chest, the utter resignation in his eyes. To walk away was to condemn this magnificent animal to a torturous end alone in the dirt. It was to be complicit. The weight of that decision, to act or not to act, felt heavier than any physical burden he had ever carried. It was a choice that would define him forever. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the dry savanna air filling his lungs. The fear didn't leave. He simply chose to move forward despite it. His hand closed around the wire cutters in his pocket, their cold, hard reality, a stark contrast to the swirling terror in his gut. This was no longer about being a hero. It was about being human. It was about refusing to look away. Freedom from the trap was just the beginning of Koa's journey. That first limping walk away from Mateo was a testament to a will to live that had somehow survived unimaginable pain. He moved through the familiar landscape like a ghost, driven by a deep, instinctual pull to find his family. For hours he traveled, stopping often to rest his wounded leg, his body weak from dehydration and blood loss. He drank deeply from a muddy waterhole, the life-giving liquid reviving his senses. The journey was fraught with danger. He was vulnerable. Then, As the sun began to set, he heard it, a distant roar, faint but unmistakable. It was the call of his pride. A new energy surged through him. He answered with a raspy, weakened call of his own, a sound that carried all his suffering and his hope. He crested a small hill, and there they were. The lionesses paused their grooming, their heads snapping up in alertness. The cubs hid behind their mothers. They watched the approaching figure with caution, not recognizing the scent of blood and weakness. Koa stopped a distance away, his head low, a sign of non-aggression. He was a stranger to them now. Then, the lead lioness, his mate, took a tentative step forward. She sniffed the air, circling him slowly. She saw the terrible wound, saw the exhaustion in his posture, but she also saw him. Recognition dawned in her eyes. She approached and gently nuzzled his neck, a soft, welcoming chuff escaping her throat. It was the acceptance he needed. He was home. The king, battered and scarred, had returned to his kingdom. The video footage from Mateo's camera did not stay a private memory. When he finally returned to base, shaken and emotionally spent, he showed it to the head ranger. They knew immediately its power was too great to keep contained. They released it. Overnight, the grainy, shaky clip became a global sensation. It was raw, real, and it bypassed all language barriers. People watched in offices, in homes, on buses, their breath catching as Mateo approached, their hearts stopping as the wire finally snapped, their tears flowing at the lion's profound look of thanks. News channels worldwide led with the story. The look that changed everything, they called it. But this was more than a viral moment. It was a global awakening. The abstract concept of poaching suddenly had a face. Koa's face, filled with pain. It had a hero's face, Mateo's, filled with determination. Donations to anti-poaching units and wildlife sanctuaries skyrocketed. The story sparked international conversations about conservation, about the illegal wildlife trade, and about our responsibility to protect these majestic animals. School children wrote letters. Corporations launched fundraising campaigns. Mateo, uncomfortable with the title of hero, found himself giving interviews, his voice becoming a powerful tool for change. He said, "This wasn't about me. This was about Koa. And there are countless Koas out there who need our voice." His single act of courage on a dusty clearing had created a tidal wave of compassion, proving that one moment of connection could ignite a worldwide movement to protect the wild heart of our planet. The journey back to the sanctuary was a tense, silent pilgrimage. Every bump in the road jolted through the vehicle, each one feeling like a threat to the fragile life lying sedated in the back. Koa, deep under the influence of the tranquilizer, now safely administered at pulls that had everyone holding their own breath in unison. Mateo sat in the rear, his hand resting on the crate, speaking softly, a continuous monologue of reassurance meant for both the lion and himself. "You're safe now. Just rest. The hardest part is over." Upon arrival, the team moved with a practiced, urgent efficiency, transferring the massive, limp body onto a soft bed of straw in a quarantine enclosure. The immediate danger of the trap was gone, but the battle for his life was far from won. The first night was a vigil, held under the stark fluorescent lights of the medical bay. Mateo refused to leave. He sat on an upturned bucket just outside the enclosure, a single lantern casting long, dancing shadows over Koa's still form. The head vet, Dr. Alika, adjusted the IV line, delivering vital fluids, antibiotics, and pain medication. "His body temperature is critically low," she whispered, her voice hushed in the profound quiet of the night. "His system is too depleted to regulate itself. We have to get him warm." They brought in heated water bottles, wrapping them in towels and placing them carefully around him. A humble, desperate attempt to mimic the warmth of a pride long lost. Mateo found himself speaking again, the same low, steady stream of words he'd used in the field. He talked about the stars he could see through the high window, about the sounds of the African night beyond the walls, about anything to fill the silence and keep them both anchored to the world of the living. "You're a fighter," he murmured, his words a soft promise against the hum of medical equipment. "You've come so far. Just hold on through the night. Just fight." Deep in the night, Koa's eyes fluttered open. They were glazed with drugs and confusion, but they found Mateo's. There was no fear, only a deep, profound exhaustion. He held the gaze for a moment, a silent communication passing between them, then closed his eyes again with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all his suffering. That sigh, that brief connection in the depth of the night, was a victory. They had made it through the first, most critical hours. The dawn would bring new challenges, but for now, he was alive, he was safe, and he was not alone. Dawn broke, and with it came a subtle but undeniable shift. Koa's breathing was deeper, more regular. The tremors had subsided. When Dr. Alika arrived for her morning check, her face broke into the first genuine, relieved smile Mateo had seen since the rescue began. "Vitals are stronger. He's stable." He made it through the night. It was a monumental victory, the first of many small, painstaking battles to come. The real work of rehabilitation began that day, and it wasn't just about healing the body, but about healing the mind and spirit. The first meal offered was a critical test of his will to live. A piece of fresh, raw meat was placed near him, present within the safety of the walls. Mateo, remembering the moment of connection, sat with him. "You need to eat, my friend," he said softly. "You need your strength back. You have to want it." He used a long pole to gently nudge the meat closer. For a long, agonizing time, nothing happened. Then, a slight, almost imperceptible twitch of the nose. A flicker of ancient instinct buried deep beneath the layers of trauma and exhaustion. Slowly, painfully, he stretched his neck forward and took the meat. It was a small, almost insignificant movement, but to Mateo and the watching team, it was as significant as his first roar. It was a conscious choice, a choice to live. Over the following weeks, a routine established itself. Mateo became a constant, calm presence, often just sitting and reading or speaking softly, allowing Koa to grow accustomed to him without any pressure or demand. The lion's eyes began to track him, not with fear or aggression, but with a growing, curious intelligence. The deep, festering wound on his leg began to slowly knit together, leaving behind a tough, pink scar that would forever tell the story of his survival. But the deeper wound, the trauma of betrayal, pain, and abandonment, would take much longer to heal. They were rebuilding not just a body, but a soul, brick by painstaking brick, moment by quiet moment. This was the quiet, unglamorous work of salvation, and it was more beautiful than any headline. Months passed. The skeleton that had been brought into the enclosure was now unrecognizable. Koa's ribs were hidden under a layer of powerful muscle. His coat gleamed with health, and his eyes held a calm, confident awareness. He was a king again in his own right, patrolling his territory with a steady, powerful gait. The day of his release arrived not with fanfare, but with a quiet solemnity. The transfer crate was backed up to the gate of a much larger, naturalistic pre-release enclosure, a stepping stone to ultimate freedom. This territory was vast, filled with native grasses, a watering hole, and rocky outcrops, but it was still within the protected sanctuary. As the gate was raised, Koa hesitated at the threshold. He sniffed the air, tasting the unfamiliar sense of his new, temporary kingdom. He looked back once at Mateo, who stood watching, his heart in his throat. Then, with a strength that had once seemed an impossible dream, he stepped forward. His pace quickened from a cautious walk to a steady, confident trot, carrying him away from his human past and into his wild future. He disappeared into the tall grass. Mateo visited the pre-release enclosure every day, but their dynamic had changed. Sometimes Koa would be visible, resting on a rock, and would acknowledge Mateo's presence with a slow blink or a flick of his ear. Other times, there was no sign of him at all, and Mateo would feel a pang of loss mixed with pride. The ultimate goal would confirmed it. Koa was thriving, hunting successfully, and showing all the behaviors of a wild, healthy lion. The decision was made to open the final gate to the greater reserve. There was no ceremony. One morning the gate was simply lifted. When Mateo arrived that afternoon, Koa was gone. His tracks led away, deep into the vastness of the protected land. Mateo stood there for a long time, looking at the empty enclosure and the endless horizon beyond. He felt a profound sadness, but it was overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of completion. His persistence, his courage, had given Koa the greatest gift possible: a complete return to himself. He was wild again. He was free. And that was the only ending that ever truly mattered.